Hello everyone, William here, and welcome to my first video for 2026. Now initially I thought of making maybe like a collection goals video for this year, but honestly I don't really have anything major planned other than a new collection which I have some cards that I'm going to show briefly. But otherwise I just plan to like collect as normal, maybe just try to avoid some of the drama that you see going on with all of the grading companies and all the usual shenanigans around in the Pokemon hobby. But anyway, enough about that. So one thing I did do, I got this at the end of last year actually, was I finally bought Pokemon Legends ZA. It took me a while, but I finally completed Legends Arceus, and I figured I'll just play the newest iteration of that kind of game, which is ZA, which takes place in Kalos. I could tell from my first few hours that it's possibly not the best Pokemon could do in terms, well, I think, is it Game Freak? Yeah, I could tell it's not the best game ever, but honestly, so far, I don't really mind. I wasn't really expecting anything major in terms of gameplay, but so far it's okay. Just okay. Anyway, so as I have here, I have two packages of some cards that I wanted to open up, and it's a new collection goal that I have for this year. And this here is my main Pokemon binder. And when it comes to my favorite Pokemon, that is Cloyster. However, every other of my favorites kind of fall into categories of fairy or colorless normal types. You can see have some Clefairy cards here. You have some Chinchino, with a handful of Minchinos sprinkled in. We have Altaria, Gardevoir, and so forth. So I really, even though Cloyster is my favorite Pokemon from Gen 1, I generally prefer the fairy and normal type Pokemon usually. And that brings me on to these two packages here. Let me, I don't have a scissors off screen. I'll just rip it open. And this is a Pokemon I always was a fan of, but I never collected for some reason, and that is Togekiss. Here we can see, this is from, I think it's Supreme Victor's Togekiss C. C for Champion Cynthia's Togekiss in a way. I wanted to make sure I got a clean copy of this card since I call them mirror reverse holos. They are sometimes a bit condition sensitive when it comes to the scratches, possible scratches, but so far this copy looks pretty good. It does have a bit of whitening, but really, as long as the front's good, I'm fine. And Togekiss, as Togekiss is colorless here. And there are some fairy type cards, and I think more now Togekiss has more psychic type cards. Now, originally before pre-Gen 4, when there was just Togepi and Togetic, I was not the biggest fan of those two. Although I have drawn some. If I look, I saw when I went back to my parents' house, I did actually have some fan art, not fan art, but just some artwork of Togetic that I did draw. So I obviously knew of the evolution line of Togekiss. But I'm mainly a fan of Togekiss rather than Togepi and Togetic. Here is one of my very favorite arts of Togekiss, and that's because it's drawn by Sumiyoshi Kazuki. I'll take it out of the sleeve here. You can see, yeah, this is a fairy type card I was talking about. This one's, I forgot the set name. Is it Primal Clash? I'm put a footnote of it if I remember to put it in. But here you can see, I really like how Kazuki she does her backgrounds. You can see a rainbow going over. I'm pretty sure that's Pokemon Center Togekiss is on. I imagine was this, what year was this? 2015. Is this supposed to be a Lola? Maybe. I'm not really sure. Yeah, but since it's one of my favorite artworks, I figured I'd get a couple. The seller only had 3, which is why I didn't buy a 4th one. Now, there are about 16 Togekiss cards in all, excluding some variations. Togekiss VMAX has a play promo. 2 actually. The V has one and Togekiss VMAX has another. Those are kind of the only expensive cards, but everything else should be pretty easy for me to get. There's a funny story where I actually used to play a Togekiss VMAX deck. I don't actually have that card, but I played it on, that was Pokemon Trading Card Game online. And one time I actually ran into Little Dark Fury. If you don't know who he is, he's actually one of the more popular TCG streamers, and I actually beat him in the match that I had against him with Togekiss VMAX. Although that was literally just because he bricked at the start of the game. It wasn't due to any skill on my part. But that's just a funny story of Togekiss. I'm not really sure why it took so long to start a Togekiss collection. I think it's just I'm generally more focused on trainers, and I'm not really in a rush to complete any of my favorite Pokemon cards. Even for Cloyster, I'm still missing maybe 1 or 2, but it's a slow burn, and that kind of just helps you to not get burnt out of the hobby, just to kind of take my time. So that's just a few cards that I have for this video, and that's all, and thanks for watching.